guys, it's Dr. Bickling from Own It Dental. As always, here's my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. And if you guys are enjoying these videos, please do hit that like button right down below. It only takes you a second if you're not too busy. Speaking of being busy, today we're going to talk about the difference between being busy and being productive. I know I've already done a video on this, but today we're going to do a little refresh, and I'm going to add a little bit more information to this that you might not have seen. So let's dig into it. All right, so you guys have heard me say in the past that there's a difference between being busy and being productive. I've oftentimes said that being busy is the enemy of being productive. You know, we dentists, of course, we want to be busy. We want our schedules to be full, and we want to maximize all the time that we have on our schedule. But there does become a point when being too busy actually starts to work against you, and you start to work harder and not smarter. So let's dig into that a little bit, and let's see what we're talking about. All right, and I've shown you this in the past. I'm going to get out of the way here. Let me grab my pointer. I've shown you this in the past. This is some old data here, but this client came to me just after the pandemic and wanted to grow their business. And so as you know me, I'm always trying to get the field hygiene growing, because that's where everything starts, is at the field hygiene. So, and you can see after the pandemic, we started growing nicely, almost doubling this practice. However, if we look at their production over that same period of time, you can see it's been flatlined, and the collections is flatlined as well. And so as you can imagine, you know, the collections per field hygiene was basically an inverse of the growth. You know, as the number of field hygiene patients was growing, the collections per field hygiene was shrinking at an equal rate, making everything a flat line. And this is not unique to this one practice. This happened to my practices, and this happens to practices all across the United States. At a certain point of growth, you actually start to become too busy and you stop becoming productive. I found that once that threshold is reached, offices will start to drop between 20 to 36%. Your mileage may vary once you reach that threshold of busyness, and you actually start working harder instead of smarter. The reasons why this happens is because, you know, when you start to become too busy, you do what I call the drive-by exam. You know, that quick exam where you're not really showing the patient all the attention that they deserve. And so in some of those cases, you start to diagnose less. But more likely, you know, the patients see that you're rushed, you're not building a relationship with them, you're not building trust, you're not building confidence, and so there's just lower case acceptance across the board. And so when you're too busy, you know, you can't properly build rapport with patients, you can't go over treatment plans thoroughly, you may not be able to diagnose thoroughly. And I think sometimes the patients can even feel your anxiety. So, you know, they may get dentistry done, but they'll get the stuff that's covered by insurance, you know, what I call the single tooth, low fee, insurance driven dentistry. So here's some newer stuff, more up to date stuff. These are some clients here, and it's the same in every office. The blue line here represents the average number of hygiene checks per doctor, and the orange line represents the average production per field hygiene. And you can see as these doctors grow, they grow their practices, but they don't increase the number of staff that they have. So the doctors on average start seeing more and more patients, and proportionately speaking, they start producing less and less as they grow. Now you're like, but Dr. Bickling, I want to grow my practice. And true, you do want to grow your practice. But there's two things that we have to keep in mind here. You want to grow, but at a certain threshold, that's when this starts. And we have to identify what that threshold is. And the reason why we want to identify that threshold is because, remember, these doctors is just the same number of doctors. But once you hit that threshold, that's when you want to add more doctors and more hygienists, for that matter, and more staff to support those doctors. So that's the key here, is identifying what that threshold is, where these numbers start to drop. You know, so for this doctor here, you can see that once we start getting above 200 hygiene exams per month, once it starts going up there, that's when the drop really starts to become precipitous. You can see these doctors' highest peaks here are either at or below 200 hygiene exams per month. So we're probably in that 150 to 200 filled hygiene exam per doctor range for this office here. Here's another one here, same thing, is once we start getting up around 200 hygiene checks, boom, it just drops off like a cliff, right? And if we look at these peaks, look at this highest one is down closer to 100. But you can see a lot of these higher peaks here, a lot of that sweet spots right here, right around 150 to 200. So, you know, it's the same office after office after office. Here's another one, you know, as they start to grow, as soon as they start hitting that 200 mark, boom, the production per filled hygiene just goes off a cliff. And you're gonna notice all of these peaks are right here with these little valleys down here in that 150 range. So, and I found the same thing with my offices as well. Once my associates got to about 150 hygiene checks per month per doctor, their production did this. It just dropped right off a cliff. In my offices, it almost got cut in half. So there is a point where being too busy is the enemy of being productive. So I found that about 150 hygiene exams per month for an associate is about that sweet spot where they're busy enough to be productive, but also not so busy that they're a little bit hungry. And I think they seem to make the most out of it there. So whenever I get to about 150 hygiene exams per doctor, that's when I start looking for another one. And there's a bit of a window, as you saw here. It's in that 150 to 200 range. But I start looking for another doctor once we're right around 150. And so that gives me a little bit of a buffer. And like I said, one of the ways that you can tell that your doctors are starting to become less productive is they start doing the single tooth, low fee, insurance driven dentistry. You know, they'll go in, they'll do their drive-by exam, and sure, the patients, you know, may say yes to treatment. Your case acceptance might be very high, but they're only saying yes to the stuff that insurance covers. And you're going to identify this with lots of little appointments on the production schedule. So if your doctor's seeing a lot of little appointments, I guarantee you they're probably seeing over 200 hygiene exams per month. Go ahead and check me out on that one, see if I'm correct. So in any case, you know, there's that range between 150, 200 hygiene exams per month. Start looking for a new doctor once you start getting around 150 hygiene exams per month per doctor. And you have a little bit of wiggle room, but you don't want to start going above that because, like I said, that's the point where busy starts to become the enemy of being productive. And that's when you're working harder, not smarter. So again, I'm Dr. Bickling. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Talk to you soon. Bye. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like it, go to ownitdental.com or click the link above and check out my services. I have dozens of hours of training videos and I've negotiated reduced lab fees for all my clients. So if you want to get out of the dental chair and start owning your business, go to ownitdental.com and check out my services, and I'll see you soon.